के सल्ले अला फूल खिलते हैं बड़ बड़ के सल्ले अला झूम कर कह रही है इबादे सबा ऐसी खुशबू चमन के गुलों में कहाँ ऐसी खुशबू चमन के गुलों में कहाँ.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Radio Ramadan 87.7 FM, and I'm your host Zubair Akram with reflections on the Quran here on Radio Ramadan with my guest Sheikh Rizwan Muhammad. And inshallah, over the coming days, we'll be exploring one of the shortest and probably one of the most profound chapters, Surah Quraysh. It's a brief surah, only 4 verses. And within it, we have history, economics, maybe security, gratitude, purpose of worship. And it's straight after the story of Abraha and the elephants, the warring elephants in Surah Fil. And the last session, it was amazing. Amazing ending for me. First time it was highlighted, all the ayahs of Surah Fil end with a lam. And the last lam starts with Li'ila fi Quraysh of Surah Quraysh. And to help us reflect on this surah, with Sheikh Rizwan Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Long awaited this pair. I think a lot of people who are following this these sessions, they would be really looking forward to the connection, and also maybe before the connection, the reason again of this pair, Surah Fil and Surah Quraysh, and then inshallah we will start reflecting ayah by ayah on Surah Quraysh. So the connection, Sheikh, between these two. I think yesterday we stopped at Lam, and the Lam of Surah Quraysh.
Yeah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So yes, yesterday's session we ended up just reflecting upon the lyrical power of the chapter itself. It ends with a lam. It's like the passing of the baton onto the next chapter. The next chapter obviously didn't come and was not revealed immediately after Surah Al-Fil. And so there is a sequence of perhaps 10 chapters that were revealed in that intermediary period that is of interest because it still shows that the unity of the Quranic message, the way that it was revealed, everything fell into place and everything has its exact portion in terms of the meanings, the power, and the message that's been given out. So you have to go into Surah Quraysh with an understanding of Surah Al-Fil. Surah Al-Fil, we talked about a number of things. I think misunderstandings about the chapter itself. I think yesterday, misunderstanding, and it can be applied to this day and age and to the current situations as well, where we read the instance of this supernatural destruction and decimation of an extremely large army against a helpless population who had retreated into the mountains of Makkah al-Mukarramah, awaiting the almost eventual inevitable destruction of the Kaaba, and it all unravels very quickly, unravels miraculously as well. And what I said was yesterday that this is a watershed in human history as well, because the prophets were sent, and the prophets were sent with a message, and the message was resisted, and the resistance was then heightened and ramped up until the point that God sent some sort of warning and some sort of punishment. So we have the people of Thamud, the people of Ad, the people of Fir'aun, every major prophet you can think of was destroyed. Lut, you think of it, there's this destruction as a result of what they did. And so, every single time that happens, you have an intervention as a result of the obstinance and the kind of the kind of arrogance of a group of people. So if you have the people of Ad, the people of Thamud, the people of Lut, the people at the time of Fir'aun, they're all destroyed by something. And the thing that they're destroyed by is essentially indicative of what they worship. So even northern Yemen, the way they had their power, and we talked about this in passing, was that they had power by using irrigation and using water. And so, if you've ever been to, even to this day, if you go to northern Yemen, Taiz, Sana'a, and all these kind of raised platforms of irrigation, and it's actually it's such an amazing, almost like a unique set of geographical phenomena that they then create to irrigate these very mountainous regions. That was their power, and that was their claim to authority. And their destruction essentially came by the bursting of the dam, and it destroyed the whole civilization. It just destroyed everything that was there. And you look at even the people of Lut, alayhi salatu wasalam, they overturned and inverted all natural inclinations. So Lut, they just turned everything upside down. And their destruction was essentially that their cities were essentially, the Quran specifically, mu'tafikati, is basically this kind of overturning. And so the result of that, pre-Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and there was a period before the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was a situation where people were sent who were prophets, and they came and they preached and they were rejected. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at certain points, when it was clear that their rejection was out of obstinance and arrogance and pride, there was a destruction. And it was a destruction as a sign for other people. There was never a destruction to show them that they were wrong. It was to bring people to an understanding that you're never going to win if you stand in the path of God's plan. And God's plan is not this kind of supernatural plan which is abnormal and unnatural. It's a plan which is to live an ethical life, normal life, to not to stretch the bounds of the human psyche and become arrogant, ignorant, and violent against other people. That guidance, if it was rejected with obstinance, it was then destroyed. And we said that the Prophet ﷺ, when he was sent as a mercy to all of mankind. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. And part of that mercy was that was now off the table. That destruction, to almost like as a presentation to humanity of the coming of the Prophet ﷺ, that intervention, or that type of intervention of a people objecting and then being destroyed, is now no longer the case. Because Al-Fil is essentially also the famous thing about that year is that the Prophet is born. It said just under 2 months after that event took place, the Prophet was born. He was born, as we'll see in this chapter, into security, into safety, into prosperity of a type. A divine preservation and protection for the Prophet ﷺ. And the moment he comes in, the Quran later says this, وَمَا كَانَ مُعَذِّبُهُمْ وَأَنْتَ فِيهِمْ, that God will not punish them while you're amongst them. So the Prophet ﷺ being amongst them, being sent to them, meaning after he was sent, it's not for God to punish them. It's not for God to take on the punishment himself, subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it's rather that they will unravel themselves. Their lives will unravel themselves, and it'll essentially be a lesson for people as nations rise and fall. It'll be lessons for people in how what the prophets came with. The prophets, meaning the whole spread of prophets from the Prophet Adam alayhi salatu wasalam to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what they came with was truth. What they came with was a way of living which gives everybody their right. Inna Allah qad a'ata kulli dhi haqqin haqqa, that God has given, the Prophet said, everybody their right. So everything should be in its place. But the moment people move things from their places, take things that don't belong to them, usurp land that doesn't belong to them, usurp resources that don't belong to them, take freedoms and liberties that don't belong to them, you're going against the prophetic model. And it's at that point that you know that you will not be on the winning or the successful side in history. So that is does not require supernatural. It doesn't require intervention. So yesterday we were talking about this. You said that you're following the Pakistani broadcasts and things, and obviously there was lots of messaging about Surah Fil, and so the expectation being that we need an intervention like this intervention, because so the reason for that is like a lot of international lawyers, this was around the time of the second Iraq war. We're talking about the international order being totally changed by the fact that air power and superiority essentially would dictate victories in war. So essentially, if you could, and now this is like common knowledge now. I was reading something about the Kurdish minority in northern Iran and also in northern Syria being almost like invited to go into Iran and fight.
Yeah.
But they said we're not going to do it until we have a no-fly zone. So this kind of no-fly zone. No-fly zone means that we can go in and do our things on the ground, and there's no fear from the skies. So, Surah Al-Fil, وَأَرْسَلَ عَلَيْهِمْ طَيْرًا أَبَابِيلَ was this sense of God had complete power over the sky. There was complete power and authority for God through these elements of birds flying, complete power over over the space above the army of Abraha. And so the international order changed the moment that you have air power, which completely controls the airspace. It completely changes. And that is now going to change with the coming of the Prophet ﷺ. And the intervention will not be that. The intervention will be this disintegration, which starts with, it's almost like there's lots of things that come into my mind in terms of, Surah Al-Fil is, I said that the destruction of them was their internal destruction, this doubt, this weakness, this mental weakness and malleability that afflicted them the moment they realized that they weren't dealing just with an army or with a small group of tribes in Quraysh. They were actually dealing with God. That created defeat in their mind, which meant that it was as they say, fait accompli. It's easily going to happen. Whatever's going to happen after that is just a question of time. It's a question of how it happens, not when it happens or if it happens. That is essentially now going to be the same thing that takes place in the rest of civilization now up until this moment in time. The destruction of a nation happens through a loss of its self-belief, a loss of its essential values. So it doesn't know why it's fighting. And so you'll find in America, for example, you'll have war veterans demonstrating and saying, why are we fighting? And one of the things that they always say is, it's not our war. It's like Muhammad Ali when he refused to be, become a conscript into the American army to Vietnam. He said, why are you sending a brown person to fight other brown people? It's not my war. So he was asking the most basic question, which is, what's the purpose of us going all the way there? And essentially it was, for America, it was containing the Russian threats, the USSR, using proxies outside its own homeland. But that is now, I think, this creeping cancerous growth within the psyche of these kind of imperial Western powers, where they're told to fight and they're invested in fighting, but the people that are going to be sent to fight are essentially asking, why are we fighting? So that comes back to Surah Al-Fil, because if you create this doubt within the army that's fighting, then you essentially have lost the war. Because even if there's a victory, there's no one to celebrate the victory. If you think of the first Iraq war, the second Iraq war, the veterans that came back, these poor American young men who were sent, came back, left to fester in the underbelly of American society, basically living as drunkards on the streets, homeless, basically used up cartilage, munitions for this global elite. And so at that point, when the people who fought ask, why did we do it? It leads you to the point that you think that the people that won that, quote unquote, won that war, and they didn't win it, or at least celebrated it, came back with no victory worth celebrating. And so that is the passing on of the message from Surah Al-Fil, which will then go into Surah Quraysh. And the other thing I mentioned yesterday was the fact that the Prophet's victories in his life that manifest this change, shift from God intervening directly, is actually a very interesting thing, which is to do with tranquility. Again, internal tranquility, peace in warfare. You know, فأنزل السكينة. Allah constantly says this in the Battle of Hunayn, the Battle of Badr, the Battle of Khandaq. And even actually, if you think about it, the first move, which was during the Hijrah of the Prophet ﷺ, ثاني اثنين في الغار. The second of the second of the two in the cave. أنزل السكينة, and Allah placed sakina, this tranquility. The victory came with the tranquility being placed at a time of fear. And so the Prophet ﷺ, his help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when it came in these times of military difficulty and existential threat, such as being chased by the Quraysh during the Hijrah, for example, during the first battle of Badr al-Kubra, and just marked this yesterday, the battle of Uhud, the battle of Khandaq, the battle of Hunayn, إِذْ أَعْجَبَتْكُمْ, Allah says, when your large numbers impressed you, when you were much larger than the other enemy, but the tables turned, and then Allah says that Allah gave you sakina. It wasn't some kind of ababil, it wasn't some kind of tufan that came and decimated the armies, some kind of supernatural event. It was God calming the people who had the responsibility to do it and the mission to do it. And that's why I was saying yesterday, you know, making use of Quranic metaphors and leitmotifs and stories outside their place actually is a dereliction of duty, because it means that you're not putting the preparation in, you're not putting the thinking, you're not doing the strategic planning. That is, and the other thing I'll mention that came to me now is the reason for that is that the Prophet was going to leave, and he was going to leave people to sort their stuff out themselves. You understand what that means? It means if you've got a problem, you're going to have to roll your sleeves up. If you've got an enemy, you're going to have to study that enemy, because the Prophet taught you how to do it. The sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ was that he taught his companions how to deal with what the world and life after he ﷺ left, and after after which there would be no prophet. And so I see, just let me finish. So I see in the modern age Muslim scholarship and Muslim religious leaders essentially relegating themselves back to a pre-Prophet Muhammad ﷺ period when they expected something else. And that, I think, is one of, I mean, it's for the religious leadership to do that and to think in that way, I think is just, again, it doesn't leave you in a good place in terms of the people that are following them.
So what we're saying is that for us to follow Sunnah, for us to follow Prophet ﷺ, is to understand the patterns, understand the way, the methodology, and apply it today. It's not the exact mapping of what happened then will happen today.
No, I mean, what happened then, meaning then at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, will happen today. In other words, there won't be a supernatural intervention of that nature, because the Prophet didn't allow us to put our faith only in that, waiting for something to happen. So what happened then will happen now. And also you have to, then the other thing you mentioned is look at the patterns. Yeah, absolutely, look at the patterns, but they're both the same. They're both going hand in hand. The challenges and the way you face them will be exactly the same. The Prophet trained and taught his companions how to do that. In other words, one of the amazing miracles of the Prophet ﷺ was that he didn't allow them to fall back into the supernatural and to expect interventions from the heavens in that immediate direct way, because your individual volition, choice, power, and what we call kasb in Arabic, which is this acquisition of good values, good choices, is your responsibility, and that's what you're essentially going to be judged on. So that's the same. And if you look at the Seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, he taught military formations in battle. He gave advice and instructions. And look at the Battle of Uhud, for example, all the movements the Prophet dictated to the companions. As long as they stuck to them, they were victorious. And the moment they broke them, they broke the pattern of military formation. It's when they became weak. And it's like the Prophet did that throughout his whole life. Like even when the last things he did, sallallahu was send or prepare an army to march against the Romans, which was headed by Osama bin Zayd radiallahu anhu. And the reason for that was strategic, because he knew that he had a similar acumen than of his father, Zayd bin Haritha radiallahu anhu. He was, despite his young age, he was able to take the responsibility of leading a much more wise, elderly army with him. And that was based on the fact you have to choose the best person for the job, not the spiritually most powerful, not the spiritually most accomplished, not the spiritually most respected, but the person who has the best CV, as you say, personality, skill set, to be able to control that group of people, to be able to do the job. And that's the same now. I mean, if you look at the conflict that's happening as we speak, it's very similar. The end game of that, depending on which country you're behind or which outcome you want to have, is the same. You have to do the strategic planning and plotting.
So the prophetic matrix needs to be understood. So it's a matrix. It's not a linear path. You need to understand. So the matrix, what I understand from what you've said is, you learn strategy as a discipline. You learn how to understand history, and that's a discipline in itself. How to get messages out of history which apply to our situation today. It's a modern academia exercise in a way. So you've done all of that. This is what Fizai Badr is. This is what the preconditions or the environment of Badr is. And once you've done all of that, then you expect that Qatar andar Qatar utar sakte hain for farishte darun se aaj bhi.
So that's interesting, because even during the Battle of Hunain, the Battle of Badr, there was the support of angelic forces. The angelic forces, essentially, you can correlate them to the sakina that I talked about. So that sakina is what? Is that certitude that you can't control. I mean, it's one of these strange things, if you think about it. If you're ever about to give, imagine you're about to give a speech. I remember I was actually in Turkey. I was going to give a talk. They invited me to give a talk on Sheikh Halusi Effendi, rahimahullah, great poet, Sufi of the last century. And I went, and there was like 5,000 people there. And the day before the event, they said to me, okay, your Turkish is very good, so you can do it in Turkish. At this point, this was like 2015, I think. I hadn't spoken Turkish for, I think, 24 years or something. It was like, I basically had forgotten Turkish, like in terms of speaking it. And they said, no, it's okay. There's ambassadors there, there's politicians, there's like 5,000 people. You'll be fine. And I remember, I thought, what's the worst that can happen? Nothing. I'll still be alive afterwards. So then, just before I was about to speak, I was like, you feel like, because you see all these dignitaries, and there's like 4 professors next to me. Like there's this professor, Shimshek, who's like an expert in history on Turkish TV all the time, and he's introducing me, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this and then it's 15 minutes. But the thing was, your heart is racing, and then all of a sudden, it is like sakina. It's like absolute sakina. And then you can't control that. There was no like breathing exercise. Like, they say that if you're about to give a talk, there's certain things you can do to prepare.
Yeah,
it's not going to work if you're doing something that is not normal. And so it was just it comes from somewhere else. So that's sakina. Sakina is this thing that comes, and you don't really have the ability to control it. It's not breathing technique. It's not visualizing. It's not any of these psychological techniques that people are told to do. It's sakina, and this is angelic. This is godly. This is something that's you have no control over, and that's what you will get. So if you do the prep, you will get that input from God, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But this is
and that's Surah Fil for us.
And this is it, because Surah Fil, if you think about it, the misunderstanding of it is the aerial bombardment against an elephant, isn't it? But I told you that's not the case. The case is that the victory was won the moment Abraha realized he was dealing with God.
So, when Abdul Muttalib said, "Give me my camels, and the house will be taken care of by the Lord."
Yeah, that was a seed.
Yeah.
The seed was planted, but then it sprouted the moment that the elephant just went AWOL, completely AWOL. Like it was like they tried everything, and that movement, that point of change, is the moment that the victory was won. The rest, the fireworks which come up and everyone thinks about, is essentially just showing you what happens when the self-belief disappears. And so that's the same thing here. What I said to you yesterday also was that the message of it is that if you change the internal, or if you change an internal mechanism, the external, it actually destroys itself by itself. If you destroy the programming and the program of hardware, you got some hardware. Nowadays they've got, what have they got? Robots, and they've got AI. They'll have AI, kind of operatives. If you destroy this software that operates the hardware is useless. The hardware is just holds the software program, and essentially psychology is similar. If you end up doing something to the internal mechanism of a person, they become like a successful person. If you destroy their self-belief, they become like a shadow of themselves. So if you've ever met somebody who was at the top of their game, very successful, and had the world at their feet, and something within them just snapped, something self-belief, something of confidence, it can't come back. Now once it disappears, it's a question of time before everything that we see unravels. And so this is why, it's my kind of prediction that this kind of, the fall of colonial empires takes place for different reasons. And to see how they fell, you'd have to look at where their power was and how they fell. But every major power has an internal weakness, which is to do with their software, which once you've cut and short-circuited, it's just a question of before it comes crashing down. And I think the thing with the current hegemony of Western culture is based on individualism. It's based upon the power of the person. It's based upon feeling. It's based upon sense of priority and prerogative to do what they want. Once that confidence disappears, it's a generation.
It's a well-known Urdu thing as well. कि क्या है? Let me, it'll come to me. कि इंसान की हर नाकामी और हर कामयाबी का ताल्लुक अंदरून से है, बैरून से नहीं.
अंदरून से है. Yes.
हर नाकामी और हर कामयाबी का ताल्लुक अंदरून से है, बैरून से नहीं. Every success and failure lies within, not out with. The reason of every success and failure lies within and not out with. So okay. So Surah Fil is a tafsir of this Makula.
It's a manifestation of it.
It is a manifestation of it. Zabardast, alhamdulillah. Long-awaited Surah Quraysh, inshallah, short ad break, and we will get into Surah Quraysh after this 20-odd minutes of summary of Surah Fil and the lessons and the reflections of it.
में मौजूद है, हमने आँखों से देखा नहीं है, मगर हमने आँखों से देखा नहीं है, मगर उनकी तस्वीर सीने में मौजूद है, जिसने लाकर कलामे इलाही दिया, जिसने लाकर कलामे इलाही दिया, वो मोहम्मद मदीने में मौजूद है, में मौजूद है. हमने माना
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
In the name of Allah, the entirely merciful, the especially merciful.
لإيلاف قريش
For the accustomed security of the Quraysh,
إيلافهم رحلة الشتاء والصيف
their accustomed security in the caravan of winter and summer.
فليعبدوا رب هذا البيت
Let them worship the Lord of this house,
الذي أطعمهم من جوع وآمنهم من خوف.
who has fed them, saving them from hunger, and made them safe, saving them from fear.
Sadaqallahu al-Azim. Surah Quraysh. Surah Quraysh is what we will focus on in this half of the session. Sheikh, Surah Quraysh. So moving on from the summary of Surah Fil to Surah Quraysh now. لإيلاف قريش إيلافهم رحلة الشتاء والصيف. I don't normally look into the translation or tafsir before coming to this session, but today I did. لإيلاف قريش. And for the first time I realized that what it was saying, لإيلاف قريش. I have a few things to ask you, but let's start with the لإيلاف قريش, the accustomed. There are so many ways the لإيلاف has been described in different translations. لإيلاف.
Tell me what you found.
What I found, okay, so لإيلاف قريش. Yani, I think it's the comfort zone. The comfort zone is taking things for granted and believing in your own muscle is the worst one can do. A community or an individual. Everything is from God, and I think need to understand what that means. It's not you have done something. Whatever you do is from Allah, and you should be realizing it and never go into a comfort zone of because things are happening in a good way, they will continue to happen.
Okay.
That's what Li'ila fi Quraysh starts with as a concept.
So that's you're saying that's a translation of it? What's
it's a translation. It's a translation. It's recognizing the comfort zone, and the comfort zone is not a good thing to have. Is the meaning of the translation.
Okay.
What I understand.
Okay. So this chapter is the structure of the Quran is extremely complex. I know people don't like hearing that. They say it's وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ. You know, the Quran does say we have made the Quran easy for remembrance. فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِّرٍ. And so is there anybody that will take heed? So there is an aspect of the Quran which is very easy, meaning simple and accessible, which is the basic message of Tawheed, the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which you can explain to anybody and they'll get it. Like if you explain to somebody that everything that has a beginning has a cause, and they think about it, everything that has a beginning has a cause. You can't think of anything or even surmise anything that has a beginning that doesn't have a cause. The world has a beginning. Okay, we know that from cosmology, we know that from the Big Bang Theory, we know that from thermodynamics. Therefore, the world must have a cause. And the cause has to be one. It can't be many causes. Because if there's many causes, then what caused the first cause? So everybody understands Tawheed. Tawheed is the oneness of God, the one creator, the one sustainer. And if the God created, then he must sustain, and he must intervene, and he must send messengers. That's basic. And then the other idea of messengers being sent is the communication. The communication has to be through a a means by which we understand our language. And this is what the Quran says, that we sent no prophet except in the lisani qawmihi, except through the language of the people. And so that's to make it articulate. So that makes perfect sense as well. And there's also makes perfect sense that certain things are good for you and you should do them. Certain things are bad for you, you shouldn't do them. So war and lying and things like that, they're destructive. So you shouldn't try and get into situations where those happen. Certain things you can eat, which are good for you, certain things are not. So these are all things that people accept. There's nothing, in the message that's strange in that sense. But what's interesting is in how it affects us as human beings. So this whole idea of safety, security, all these things, they're understood and they're accepted, and they're things that we should work on. I think that Surah Quraysh, in terms of its meaning that comes out to me, is how it connects. And this is the idea of the complexity of the Quran. The complexity of it is such that there's a passage of time between the revelation of one and the other. Surah Fil finishes and it ends with فَجَعَلَهُمْ كَأَصْفٍ مَأْكُولٍ. The lamb is the end, and I said it's the kind of imagery of the trunk of the elephant. But then that passes on to other 10 or so chapters that come after that, revelations that come after that, and then Surah Quraysh comes. But it comes with an introduction, if you know the Arabic, which is you don't start a sentence with a preposition. Quraysh, for what? Something. I gave him £100 for the computer. I gave him a lesson, a lowdown in what's happening in the Middle East, for a better understanding of how to prepare. For, in other words, the whole point of saying for, or the purpose of, is you do something first and then you say it's for the purpose of this. I give you this to do that, this for this. So the for here in the Arabic, it just comes in the middle of nowhere. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim li-ilafi Quraysh. What is it? An ilaf literally means security, safety, protection, sanctification, a sense of sakina as well. This kind of
ilaf means this.
From mu'allafa, which is to do with bringing things together. فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِهِمْ, that God brought people's hearts together. لَأَنفَقْتَ مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا مَا أَلَّفْتَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِهِمْ. God says that if you were to spend all the wealth in the universe to bring people's hearts together, you would not be able to do it. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ أَلَّفَ بَيْنَهُم. But God did it. This idea of bringing things together, bring this safety, security, tranquility, which you expect in a family, for example. You expect a family, which is an extended family, to have this sense of ilaf, sense of togetherness, safety, security, contentment. All these are kind of words that come up in this idea of ilaf. So ta'lif, mu'allaf, all these kind of ideas are to do with related and connected and distant word systems and letter systems, all come and congregate around this idea of creating a critical mass for security and prosperity. What is
ulfat in
ulfat as well? Yeah, in ulfa, yeah. Mu'allafa. So mu'allafat qulubuhum in zakat is people that's hearts are reconciled through giving them zakat, for example. So this is the kind of the meaning cloud that you have. You think of the word ilaf actually requires a meaning cloud of lots of concepts that feed into understanding exactly what's at the core of it, which is allafa, which is to bring together with tranquility, coherence as well, coherence. But this coherence has this sense of safety, sense of security, sense of peace, sense of sakina. But what's happening here, it doesn't tell you where that comes from. What was done to do this? لِإِلَافِ قُرَيْشٍ, so that the Quraysh can have the security, safety, tranquility, cohesion, unity. What happened to do that? So it doesn't, the Quran in this chapter doesn't tell you لِإِلَافِ قُرَيْشٍ, so that they would gain this. What? So that they would gain it. And this is why when Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu used to recite Surah Fil, he never finished it in prayer except that he joined it with لِإِلَافِ قُرَيْشٍ.
Sheikh, what's the literal meaning of li'ila fi Quraysh?
For
How would you translate?
yeah, for the, I mean, I would have to get translation to do it, but li'ila for the, actually, it's a good point. Actually, I'm going to actually do something. I'm going to get this translation, which I think is probably my
Okay.
favorite one, but I've not used at all. So
Okay.
li'ila fi Quraysh would be for creating the security of the Quraysh. So let me just jump up
Okay.
and get this.
Yeah.
So anyway, I
Yeah.
should have this on my table, but I don't use it. So this is Sheikh Nuh Hamim Keller's translation. His translation, I do think, is a change. And for the English speaker, it is a massive change in the way that the Quran is. I think it marks a watershed, which means that anything comes after this will have to reference this. So what it says is, in the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate, for making Quraysh familiarly fond together. For making Quraysh familiarly fond together, as they have all been made familiarly fond of going on their sacred protected trade caravans of the winter south and the summer north. You can see there that he's not attempted to even answer that question, because that is quite a difficult translation to read, that example. So I'm just giving you an example of the complexity. That didn't make sense to me at all, to be honest. So it leaves you in a situation where it shows the complexity. If that's a good translation, it's
Chunke Quraysh manus hue. You know, it's chunke
yeah.
Quraysh manus hue. This is the.
Let me try and pick up, draw. I don't do this, but I'll do it today actually. Let's see. I'm going to go through a couple of translations actually. Let me go to a website.
Okay.
And if you can just bear with me on this. So Muhammad Asad says, so that the Quraysh might remain secure. So there you go. It's actually good. So that the Quraysh might remain secure. What? The next verse is what? Secure in their winter and summer journeys. Let them therefore worship the sustainer of this temple. So temple is Bait, which we translate as house, he translates as temple. Who has given them food against hunger and made them safe from danger. So that's Muhammad Asad. He's one of my favorite. Let's say Arbery. Arbery is always interesting. For the composing of Quraysh, this idea of, security, composing. Let's have a look at Maulana Maudoudi's English translation. Since the Quraysh became accustomed to the journey of winter and summer, so the trade routes. So they're trying to. So you can see this. I mean, the translation of this is very interesting because everyone's going completely different directions. So Mubarak Puri is saying for the ilaf of the Quraysh. What does that mean?
For the ilaf of the Quraysh, like for the unsiyat, for the ulfa of the Quraysh. No?
Yeah, okay. They're all doing it, but what for that? Like what happened for that? Do you understand? So this is where you have to take Surah Fil with you and everything we've learned and then bring it with you and say, okay, all of this that we learned about Surah Al-Fil, which is the core meaning, which is that God decimated Abraha by creating this sense of doubt within him that led to the destruction of a plot to overtake Mecca as the center of pilgrimage and center of commerce and to destroy its security. God did this so that the
favor of making Quraysh habitually secure.
Yeah, to secure them.
Okay.
You understand? To secure them, but not them. This is not where I want to go actually. Because Quraysh, like what's the big deal about Quraysh if it wasn't for the Prophet ﷺ? This is actually in Sahih Muslim. The Prophet ﷺ, talked about his lineage and talked about the fact that God chose from the people of the world Ismail, and from the people of Ismail all the genealogy, and from the people of Quraysh, he chose Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Like this choice, like the reason Quraysh are being secured and put in safety is not for them, it's for the one that comes from them. It's the one that comes from their loins.
So what we're saying is, have you not seen how your Lord dealt with the people of the elephants? Did he not bring their plan to naught? And he sent against them swarms of birds, which smote them with stones of baked clay,
Yeah.
and made them like straw eaten up by cattle, so that since the Quraysh became accustomed,
For their security. So that whole thing I was talking about in terms of what ilaf means: composure, safety, security, self-assuredness. That whole thing, to create that environment of complete safety and security, was the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought an end to the army of Abraha. And the reason for that wasn't because of Quraysh or any tribal speciality that they have, apart from the fact that from them would come the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, and to bring him into an environment where there was safety, there was security, so that the real injustices of the society, which were to do with belief, would become manifest. So when you have lots of issues going on, imagine you've got lots of things going on in your life, you find it difficult to pin down what's the most important things you need to fix. You've got this going on: financial, family, work, you've got the house, and you've got debt, and everything's going on, and your head's in a spin of what to do. Now what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does, because the final prophet with the final message is creates complete geopolitical machinations are left or off the table. There's not much in terms of economic benefits there. Everything is secure and safe, but then what will come to the fore is the real shortcomings of that society, and the shortcomings of every society, which need to be addressed, which is to do with taking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala out of the central space of human beings and their life. And this idea of aqidah, and this idea of tawheed, and this idea of the new unity of God, and how that affects how you behave, how you act, and also the importance of revelation in that. So all those things are not like fairy tale. It's not like a cult. It's the fact that without revelation and without a God-centered worldview, you will create all these imbalances in societies, because all the imbalances that we see externally are internal spiritual ailments and diseases. If you look at the American president, you're talking about like open heart surgery spiritually, because everything's going on. Everything is just make America great again. It's like all arrogance, it's all pride, it's all vanity. And the people that follow him are also the same mindset. And that kind of warlike posturing is not good for anybody. And when the Prophet
not even for themselves, not for the
not even yes. So if you think compared to the Prophet when the moment he entered into Mecca, the humility that he shows is such that his blessed forehead is touching the camel saddle. So he is so humbled by the victorious entry, that it's not this cinematic entry like you have parades of roses and flowers and people, making merry of the entry. It's a solemn affair, because it should never come to the fact that you have to go in with force. He does it in a way that secures the safety of Quraysh, secures the safety of the Arabian Peninsula, secures the safety of the people that became Muslim, and also the people that weren't Muslim at the time. He does all that. And so the comparison, if people say, well, why do you put God into the center of this equation? I think the comparison in a situation of war is that and that, black and white. And if you don't have humility and sense of humanity, you will not care about the number of people that are killed. Like the first shots that were done in the present Iran conflict was a decimation of over, slaughter and killing over 150 young girls in a school. So that doesn't register in that godless mind. Even though they claim, I saw President Trump being prayed with in the Oval Office. And that's not the prayer of the godly, that's the prayer of the godless, the people around him. And then Netanyahu an atheist Jew, has no consciousness apart from survival and survival of his tribe. Again, that's a godless, that's a godless attempt. The God-fearing one would be to make sure that the war doesn't happen in the first place. And so all of that is, it's very interesting because Ilaf al-Quraysh is connected deeply. It's almost like one welded. And this is why Ubay ibn Ka'b, when he used to, in his Mus'haf, he didn't have a separation between Surah Quraysh and Surah Al-Fil. You usually have Bismillah between them, don't you? I mean, Surah Al-Bara'ah, Surah Tawbah doesn't have Bismillah by default. But all the other chapters have Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. He didn't see it as being necessary to put a separation of Bismillah because he felt it separated the meaning, which was so connected that Al-Fil with the preservation of Mecca and Quraysh was so connected to the security of Quraysh that you could not separate it either in writing or in recitation. And even Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib, the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ, the son of Abdul Muttalib, he also did the same thing. Like he was Qurayshi, he was inbuilt, he was kind of embedded within the Qurayshi lineage and in the mindset of those people. Because remember, he stayed in Mecca for the majority of the period the Prophet was calling to Islam. And some people say he was a Muslim most of that period, even though he didn't proclaim it openly. He also did the same thing, which means that you're going to have to take all that message with you when you come to Surah Quraysh, when you look at the meaning, what's Quraysh. We can talk about that inshallah next session because that's a whole fascinating array of issues. But Ilaf is such an interesting introduction. Li Ilaf, for the security, safety, kind of composure, sakina, tranquility, and self-assuredness of the Quraysh. The instance of Al-Fil took place. But it's not for them. We're not bigging up the Quraysh in terms of there's some special tribe by themselves. If you take the Prophet ﷺ and his lineage out of that, the Quraysh are just another tribe that, walked the annals of history. But it's going to be the coming of the Prophet ﷺ. And it comes to the hadith of Ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu, in which he said that the Prophet ﷺ said that إِنَّ اللَّهَ نَظَرَ فِي قُلُوبِ الْعِبَادِ فما رأى قلبا أنقى وأطهر من قلب محمد فاصطفاه لنفسه وابتعث إليه رسالته. That God looked into the hearts of all of humanity to show them who they are, and he saw no heart purer and more choice and select than the heart of the Prophet ﷺ, and he chose him. فاصطفاه لنفسه. God chose the Prophet ﷺ for his message, and then he sent the message to him. فابتعث إليه رسالته. So this is the whole thing. It's all to prepare the Quraysh, almost like you're creating the bed, the soil, the infrastructure for the reception of the Prophet ﷺ. And also the reception of the Prophet means the reception of the Quran in the month of Ramadan. We're in the month of Ramadan. That revelation has to be prepared for him to receive it. And so, all those amazing insights of Surah Al-Fil will have to come in and help us in this section as well.
Sheikh, coming back to this concept of just last, I think we have about 7 minutes for this session. We will be covering Surah Quraysh, reflection of Surah Quraysh. The important concept of Ilaf, Ulfa, you mentioned that it's one of those things you can't attain yourself. It is only from God.
Mm-hmm.
You can't work for it. There is no effort.
There's preparation. Like again, it's not that thing. There's no effort. There is effort. It's you do the ground. You prepare the ground for it. It's like when you're planting something. You're going to plant a tree or some fruit. You have to prepare. You can't just put it into the ground. You have to have some fertilizer. You have to loosen up the soil. You have to make sure that there's the place where it is going to have enough sun if it requires sun, or if it doesn't, it requires shade, then shade. The temperature, all these you have to prepare. So the preparation is a necessity. It's a precondition, and that's part of the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and part of the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You don't get until you prepare. But then it's that kind of what is it that binds everybody together in that deep spiritual, emotional way? That is something that's so malleable and changeable and can break so easily. Like trust can break so easily. It can trust can break just by seeing treachery in the eye of somebody else. Like you might have a business deal, and then you just glance at the person you make the deal with, and you just notice something's wrong in the eye, the way the face is, or the eye, or some kind of gesture, and you just say that, okay, the deal's off. It's something very slight, and what is it makes that? It's this very subtle thing, and ta'lif and ulfa is a very subtle energy which actually dictates a lot of our social interactions and relationships. And it's that thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says will come together from him subhanahu wa ta'ala as a gift. It's almost like a gift. And this comes up in the Quran, and I mentioned this actually just a couple of moments ago, in how the companions came together, different tribes, different even nationalities. Shu'aib al-Rumi, you've got Bilal al-Habashi, you've got people from all over. Salman al-Farisi, all that, and also the tribes, Tamim, Qurashi, you've got Hudayl, you've got, all of them coming together on what? On something that you would never imagine. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. لو أنفقت ما في الأرض جميعا ما ألفت بين قلوبهم. If you were to spend every single resource and wealth on earth, in the universe, you would never bring their hearts together. ولكن الله ألف بينهم. God did it. God brought this synergy, this spiritual connectedness to them. This brotherhood, this sisterhood was created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after you put the preparation, after you entered into it. This is why the Quran says, udkhulu fi silmi kaffa, enter into Islam absolutely. In other words, you do the prep, you do the effort, and then this ulfa is, it's a divine gift. It's that kind of tranquility that you feel that binds families together, binds people together.
Is it connectivity?
It's this spiritual, emotional connectivity where you feel secure. And ulfa is, it's one of these things that once you have, you don't want to leave it, because once it leaves, then there's nothing in the relationship, there's nothing in the connectedness.
So and you do work for it. You create preconditions. You meet preconditions for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to then make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the kind of precondition. Like if you look even at the most basic level of families and even couples, that has to be created. I mean, the Prophet, look at the way he created it with his wives. He would like with Aisha, he would make numerous interventions to ensure that was the case. With all of them, he said he did this. He used to race with them. He used to have small talk. He used to almost like joke with them in situations. So he created a scenario where they felt there was an emotional connection of mutual respect, mutual value.
Ya
You
Wadud.
understand? Yeah, ya Wadud.
Ya Wadud. So Wadud is this zikr helps ulfa.
I mean, it goes into neurology, but ya Wadud, ya Wadud, ya Dal Arsh al-Majid, ya Dal Arsh al-Majid. That's known. That's one of the du'as of Abu Darda radiyallahu anhu that the Prophet seconded in the Muwatta of Imam Malik.
Okay.
Useful.
A bit more on that, please.
No, it's just what's nothing more since it's the motto of Imam Malik. It's the dua, Ya Wadud, Ya Wadud, Ya Dal Arsh al-Majid, Ya Dal Arsh al-Majid. It's something the Prophet saw Abu Darda read, and he commended him on that as a means of gaining Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's proximity and his ulfa, which is this kind of connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Once you're connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, everything connects itself. This is why they say that one of the means of gaining prosperity in your life is to join the prayer lines in prayer. In the prayer, having distance between the people, it breaks ulfa, it breaks this sense of connectedness. And the Prophet said, said, "Man wasala saffan wasalahu Allah, wa man qata'a saffan qata'ahu Allah." Whoever joins a row, God joins them. It didn't say with what. And whoever breaks the line, God breaks them. It didn't say what. It means from all good, like whatever you want. So that small act of keeping the lines connected, not smashing your feet on somebody else's feet, but keeping shoulder to shoulder, keeping,
But
this unity, this
is it
unity,
also metaphorical, or is it literal?
It's everything, because it's the Prophet never said what it was. What does it mean if people join the pair lines, God joins them? It means with all good, metaphorical, physical, spiritual, financial, everything, because they've fulfilled the promise that they gave to God, and God will fulfill the promise He gave to them.
Reflections with Sheikh Rizwan Muhammad, Surah Quraysh. This is the first session of, I envisage, at least 10 for these 5 ayahs, inshallah. We'll be back tomorrow with the next session. Until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
दिया जिसने लाकर कलामे इलाही दिया वो मोहम्मद मदीने में मौजूद है फूल खिलते हैं बड़ बड़ के सल्ले अला फूल खिलते हैं बड़ बड़ के सल्ले अला झूम कर कह रही है इबादे सबा ऐसी खुशबू चमन के गुलों में कहाँ ऐसी खुशबू चमन के गुलों में कहाँ जो नबी के पसीने में मौजूद है हमने आँखों से देखा नहीं है मगर हमने आँखों से देखा नहीं है मगर उनकी तस्वीर सीने में मौजूद है जिसने लाकर कलामे इलाही दिया जिसने लाकर कलामे इलाही दिया वो मोहम्मद मदीने में मौजूद है हमने माना कि जन्नत बहुत है हंसी हमने माना कि जन्नत बहुत है हंसी छोड़ कर हम मदीना न जाए कहीं यूं तो जन्नत में सब है मदीना नहीं यूं तो जन्नत में सब है मदीना नहीं और जन्नत मदीने में मौजूद है हमने आँखों से देखा नहीं है मगर हमने आँखों से देखा नहीं है मगर उनकी तस्वीर सीने में मौजूद है जिसने लाकर कलामे इलाही दिया जिसने लाकर कलामे इलाही दिया वो मोहम्मद मदीने में मौजूद है छोड़ना तेरा तैबा गवारा नहीं छोड़ना तेरा तैबा गवारा नहीं सारे आलम में ऐसा नजारा नहीं ऐसा मंजर जमाने में देखा नहीं ऐसा मंजर जमाने में देखा नहीं जैसा मंजर मदीने में मौजूद है हमने आँखों से देखा नहीं है मगर हमने आँखों से देखा नहीं है मगर उनकी तस्वीर सीने में मौजूद है जिसने लाकर कलामे इलाही दिया जिसने लाकर कलामे इलाही दिया वो मोहम्मद मदीने में मौजूद है ہم نے آنکھوں سے دیکھا نہیں ہے مگر، ہم نے آنکھوں سے دیکھا نہیں ہے مگر، ان کی تصویر سینے میں موجود ہے، جس نے لا کر کلام الہی دیا، جس نے لا کر کلام الہی دیا، وہ محمد مدینے میں موجود ہے، میں موجود ہے۔ پھول کھلتے ہیں بڑھ بڑھ کے صلی اللہ، پھول کھلتے ہیں بڑھ بڑھ کے صلی اللہ، جھوم کر کہہ رہی ہے عباد صبا، ایسی خوشبو چمن کے گلوں میں کہاں، ایسی خوشبو چمن کے گلوں میں کہاں، جو نبی کے پسینے میں موجود ہے۔ ہم نے آنکھوں سے دیکھا نہیں ہے مگر، ہم نے آنکھوں سے دیکھا نہیں ہے مگر، ان کی تصویر سینے میں موجود ہے، جس نے لا کر کلام الہی دیا، جس نے لا کر کلام الہی دیا، وہ محمد مدینے میں موجود ہے، میں موجود ہے۔ ہم نے مانا کہ جنت بہت ہے ہنسی، ہم نے مانا کہ جنت بہت ہے ہنسی، چھوڑ کر ہم مدینہ نہ جائے کہیں، یوں تو جنت میں سب ہے مدینہ نہیں، یوں تو جنت میں سب ہے مدینہ نہیں، اور جنت مدینے میں موجود ہے۔ ہم نے آنکھوں سے دیکھا نہیں ہے مگر، ہم نے آنکھوں سے دیکھا نہیں ہے مگر، ان کی تصویر سینے میں موجود ہے، جس نے لا کر کلام الہی دیا، جس نے لا کر کلام الہی دیا، وہ محمد مدینے میں موجود ہے، میں موجود ہے۔ چھوڑنا تیرا طیبہ گوارا نہیں، چھوڑنا تیرا طیبہ گوارا نہیں، ساری عالم میں ایسا نظارہ نہیں، ایسا منظر زمانے میں دیکھا نہیں، ایسا منظر زمانے میں دیکھا نہیں، جیسا منظر مدینے میں موجود ہے۔ ہم نے آنکھوں سے دیکھا نہیں ہے مگر، ہم نے آنکھوں سے دیکھا نہیں ہے مگر، ان کی تصویر سینے میں موجود ہے، جس نے لا کر کلام الہی دیا، جس نے لا کر کلام الہی دیا، وہ محمد مدینے میں موجود ہے۔ ہم نے آنکھوں سے دیکھا نہیں ہے مگر، ہم نے آنکھوں سے دیکھا نہیں ہے مگر، ان کی تصویر سینے میں موجود ہے، جس جس نے لا کر کلام الہی دیا، جس نے لا کر کلام الہی دیا، وہ محمد مدینے میں موجود ہے، میں موجود ہے۔ پھول کھلتے ہیں بڑھ بڑھ کے صلی اللہ، پھول کھلتے ہیں بڑھ بڑھ کے صلی اللہ، جھوم کر کہہ رہی ہے عباد صبا، ایسی خوشبو چمن کے گلوں میں کہاں، ایسی خوشبو چمن کے گلوں میں کہاں، جو نبی کے پسینے میں موجود ہے۔ ہم نے آنکھوں سے دیکھا نہیں ہے مگر، ہم نے آنکھوں سے دیکھا نہیں ہے مگر، ان کی تصویر سینے میں موجود ہے۔ جس نے لا کر کلام الہی دیا، جس نے لا کر کلام الہی دیا، وہ محمد مدینے میں موجود ہے، میں موجود ہے۔ ہم نے مانا کہ جنت بہت ہے حسین، ہم نے مانا کہ جنت بہت ہے حسین، چھوڑ کر ہم مدینہ نہ جائے کہیں، یوں تو جنت میں سب ہے مدینہ نہیں، یوں تو جنت میں سب ہے مدینہ نہیں، اور جنت مدینے میں موجود ہے۔ ہم نے آنکھوں سے دیکھا نہیں ہے مگر، ہم نے آنکھوں سے دیکھا نہیں ہے مگر، ان کی تصویر سینے میں موجود ہے۔ جس نے لا کر کلام الہی دیا، جس نے لا کر کلام الہی دیا، وہ محمد مدینے میں موجود ہے، میں موجود ہے۔ چھوڑنا تیرا طیبہ گوارا نہیں، چھوڑنا تیرا طیبہ گوارا نہیں، ساری عالم میں ایسا نظارہ نہیں، ایسا منظر زمانے میں دیکھا نہیں، ایسا منظر زمانے میں دیکھا نہیں، جیسا منظر مدینے میں موجود ہے۔ ہم نے آنکھوں سے دیکھا نہیں ہے مگر، ہم نے آنکھوں سے دیکھا نہیں ہے مگر، ان کی تصویر سینے میں موجود ہے۔ جس نے لا کر کلام الہی دیا، جس نے لا کر کلام الہی دیا، وہ محمد مدینے میں موجود ہے۔ ہم نے آنکھوں سے دیکھا نہیں ہے مگر، ہم نے آنکھوں سے دیکھا نہیں ہے مگر، ان کی تصویر سینے میں موجود ہے۔ جس نے لا کر کلام الہی دیا، جس نے لا کر کلام الہی دیا، وہ محمد مدینے میں موجود ہے، میں موجود ایسی خوشبو چمن کے گلوں میں کہاں، ایسی خوشبو چمن کے گلوں میں کہاں، جو نبی کے پسینے میں موجود ہے. ہم نے آنکھوں سے دیکھا نہیں ہے مگر، ہم نے آنکھوں سے دیکھا نہیں ہے مگر، ان کی تصویر سینے میں موجود ہے. جس نے لا کر کلام الہی دیا، جس نے لا کر کلام الہی دیا، وہ محمد مدینے میں موجود ہے، میں موجود ہے. ہم نے مانا کہ جنت بہت ہے ہنسی، ہم نے مانا کہ جنت بہت ہے ہنسی، چھوڑ کر ہم مدینہ نہ جائے کہیں. یوں تو جنت میں سب ہے مدینہ نہیں، یوں تو جنت میں سب ہے مدینہ نہیں، اور جنت مدینے میں موجود ہے. ہم نے آنکھوں سے دیکھا نہیں ہے مگر، ہم نے آنکھوں سے دیکھا نہیں ہے مگر، ان کی تصویر سینے میں موجود ہے. جس نے لا کر کلام الہی دیا، جس نے لا کر کلام الہی دیا، وہ محمد مدینے میں موجود ہے، میں موجود ہے. چھوڑنا تیرا طیبہ گوارا نہیں، چھوڑنا تیرا طیبہ گوارا نہیں، ساری عالم میں ایسا نظارہ نہیں، ایسا منظر زمانے میں دیکھا نہیں، ایسا منظر زمانے میں دیکھا نہیں، جیسا منظر مدینے میں موجود ہے. ہم نے آنکھوں سے دیکھا نہیں ہے مگر، ہم نے آنکھوں سے دیکھا نہیں ہے مگر، ان کی تصویر سینے میں موجود ہے. جس نے لا کر کلام الہی دیا، جس نے لا کر کلام الہی دیا، وہ محمد مدینے میں موجود ہے. ہم نے آنکھوں سے دیکھا نہیں ہے مگر، ہم نے آنکھوں سے دیکھا نہیں ہے مگر، ان کی تصویر سینے میں موجود ہے. جس نے لا کر کلام الہی دیا، جس نے لا کر کلام الہی دیا، وہ محمد مدینے میں موجود ہے، میں موجود ہے. پھول کھلتے ہیں بڑھ بڑھ کے صلی اللہ، پھول کھلتے ہیں بڑھ بڑھ کے صلی اللہ، جھوم کر کہہ رہی ہے عباد صبا. ایسی خوشبو چمن کے گلوں میں کہاں، ایسی خوشبو چمن کے گلوں میں کہاں، جو نبی کے پسینے میں موجود ہے. ہم نے آنکھوں سے دیکھا نہیں ہے مگر ہم نے آنکھوں سے دیکھا نہیں ہے مگر ان کی تصویر سینے میں موجود ہے جس نے لا کر کلام الہی دیا جس نے لا کر کلام